I think he wrote it. Yeah, I think you wrote it. Let's see when every version I've seen it doubles.
Interesting. I've never seen it.
And you've never seen it that way. That's amazing.
Yes. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. I got a signal to start in a couple minutes. You can talk amongst yourselves. I don't know. I look up and everybody gets silent. We're not starting yet. We got another minute. Leaving on the 5th, but we're on vacation on the 3rd. Yes, yes. Okay. Page 128.
Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tohu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Michael Feshbach.
Cantor Rhoda Harrison.
So I hope you've had an interesting week. This has been a powerful week in the world, which we'll discuss later. It's been a pivot point in the Jewish calendar in terms of getting past Tisha B'Av, but according to the American civic duty and obligation, apparently we had two things to do this week, and I only got to one of them, and the big discussion was which one first. So which one first?
Barbie.
And
Because
you know,
my
I,
24-year-old told me to.
well, my 22-year-old was with us, which influenced our decision. I never in a million years imagined that I would see Barbie first, but we
Me too.
did.
Me too.
So what'd you think?
I was blown away and surprised.
I never expected to even want to see it. I guess
Me too.
Natalia encouraged me, but somehow it became such a thing, and I always thought I saw Oppenheimer first, which I still have to do, and that would have been like quite a thing to see on Tisha B'Av.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet.
So what'd you think of Barbie? You were blown away.
I did. So I went, because my 25-year-old said, Mom, I know you're not going to go see it. You should go see it. And she was right. It was really good.
I thought there were several sermons in it, which means I can write off my tickets. But I did also think that it was this movie had a great message for the late 80s. I think it was a little out of date. It was like really, its comment on the gender identity was really powerful, really important, and completely ignored, more nuanced. It took on male image, it took on female image, and nothing else. So I thought that it was really interesting and worth seeing. So anyway, next time, Oppenheimer.
Next time on.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Kabbalat Shabbat, the songs and psalms with which we welcome Shabbat. We turn to Lechunu Ranana and Shiru Ladunai because we have a Torah service that's actually the only part of Kabbalat Shabbat other than Lechadodi we're singing tonight. Pages 130 and 131 from Psalm 95 and Psalm 96.
Please join us.
Pages 138 and 139, stanzas 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lower, so you guys don't have to sing in my soprano.
Several people, thank you.
Adonai,
bottom of the page, 143, below the line together. And so we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, often unknown even to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way we are now. Never forget that you, too, yourselves, may be messengers, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes. Please rise. Chatzi Kaddish, page 144.
יתהדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ילמד יברכתי יליך מלכותי.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'aliv ha'ravim, b'chokhmah poteach sharim, ובתבונה משנה עיתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו, בורא יום ולילה, כולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור.
ומביא יום ומביא לילה, ומטיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, אמרי ורבי.
Amen. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah, mitzvot, laws, and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai. We're going to pause after the Chatimah. Let's say the Hebrew together. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Normally we continue immediately, but I do want to point out that what we're about to sing is
The Torah in the Torah.
part of this week's Torah portion. We will study the Shema and Ve'ahavta more extensively tomorrow morning. I will address them later on in my remarks. And we're not chanting from that part of the Torah. We're actually going to chant from a different famous part of this week's Torah portion. But what we're about to sing is the Torah portion for this week. So I could have gotten away with just saying, sing this.
Or, for anyone who thinks they may not be able to chant Torah, if you can chant this.
You can chant
You
Torah.
can chant Torah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Moshe, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, ve'lo b'achta u'lechol nafshecha
Kedoshim Leoheichem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher Hotzei Tzidkechem me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
In fairness, it would not actually have counted as reading Torah, because look at the very bottom of page 154. You see, Ve'ahavta is from where? Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 5 through 9. But Lama'an Tizkaru is from where? Numbers. So these are the impact of the words of the Torah in the prayer book are not from the Torah. It was the rabbis of the Talmud and the Talmudic era who arranged these paragraphs in a new way in order to send a new message. So it wouldn't actually have counted. It counts as chanting practice, but it's not actually reading Torah from the week's Torah portion because it's arranged to send a different message. We turn to page 157 together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands, marching together.
Mi chamocha v'eim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'etor b'kodesh, Norat tehilot, osei kalet, Norat tehilot, osei fer, Ma'otecha, ragu panecha, okei ayam, livnei Moshe u'Miriam, zei yanu be'amechu, Adonai Yimlok, Adonai Yimlok, le'olam va'ed. Kiv'ad Adonai et Yaakov, u'ge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
The bottom of 161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'porei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ha'al Yerushalayim.
V'shamtel b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת, לדור את הברית עולם. ושמר בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור את הברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמר בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור את הברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמר בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדור את הברית עולם. ביני וביום השביעי שבת
the tefillah. Beginning on page 164, we rise and we face east.
Israel.
Torah service. Ellen Wetzel and Michelle, will you help with the Ark doors? Emily, who's over here, will you hold the Torah? Emily, who's over there, will you help prepare the Torah to be read? And we will come to the Aliyah in a moment because it may be more than one of you. We continue with Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the service for the reading of Torah, page 362.
Just a word about the melody in case it's one you're not familiar with. I choose this one, and I hope the congregation will learn to love it if you don't already know it, because I find it captures the joy with which at least I approach Torah, and I hope you all approach Torah.
I hinted at this change a couple of weeks ago when I said that the Ein Kamocha was the old Germanic style, and this is more modern.
Ein kamocha b'Elohim Adonai, v'ein k'ma'asecha, malchut ha'malchut kol olamim, v'memshaltecha b'chodo v'hador. Adonai melech Adonai melech, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai oz le'olam yitem, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av ha'rachamim, heitiva v'rtzoncha, et Zion tivne chomot Yerushalayim, ki becha levad v'tavru, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim.
Page 366.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Gadol Adonai Iti, Onrom Melach Shemo Yadav, Adonai Hagedula v'Hagevura v'Hatiferet v'Hanetzach v'Hahod, ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, Adonai ha'malacha v'yamit na'aseh v'chol erosh. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'yishachatu le'ha'kodsho. Adonai Eloheinu v'yishachatu le'ha'kodsho.
I'm about to say please be seated. Will I regret that?
I don't know. Oh, because I'm introducing you?
Yes. Please be seated for a moment.
So as Rabbi Feshbach already mentioned, our Torah portion, I don't know if you mentioned it. Did you mention the Aseret Dibrot? You did.
This is the second version of the Ten
Right,
Commandments.
so this is Aseret HaDibrot, the 10, we know them as commandments. I prefer to just say the 10 big ones, because the word mitzvot is never used. I mean, it's used in the passage, but the word that introduces them is dibrot, words, statements, but they're big statements. There's a tradition that we stand as if we were all standing at Sinai receiving these commandments, these mitzvot, these 10 big ones today. I leave it to you if you're comfortable to rise, to feel free. We're going to read the second half of the 10 big ones.
And anybody who'd like to join us for a group aliyah, please do so. So come on up. If you can stand in your seats, not on your seats, but near your seats, or you can stand around the Torah for the second half of the Ten Commandments. So some of you please join us up here. You're welcome to stand in your seats or not. So come on up. And come on around this side. You can see the Ten Commandments better that way.
Does anybody want to, if you want to, if any of them feel like the blessing.
Baruch Adonai. Those who aren't up here. Baruch Repeat. Baruch Adonai. Asher Rabanu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Shamor et Yom HaShabbat Likodsho Kasher Tziva Adonai Elohecha ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך ויום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך לא תעשה כל מלאכה אתה ובנך וביתך ועבדך ואמתך ושורך וחמורך וכל בהמתך וגרך אשר בשעריך למען ינוח עבדך ואמתך כמוך וזכרת כי עבד היית בארץ מצרים ויוציאך אדוני אלוהיך משם ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה על כן ציווך אדוני אלוהיך לעשות את יום השבת כבד את אביך ואת אמך כאשר ציווך אדוני אלוהיך למען יאריכון ימיך ולמען ייטב לך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך לא תרצח לא תנאף ולא תגנוב ולא תענה ברעך את שווא ולא תחמוד אשת רעך ולא תתאווה בית רעך שדהו ועבדו ואמתו ושורו וחמורו בכל אשר יראך.
We're about to close it, but before we do, take a quick peek right to there.
Has everyone seen it? Shema Yisrael.
Ve'ahavta.
So you can all read Torah.
Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah hamet v'chayei olam nata b'tzadkenu Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen.
Please, you can go back, but don't go far. I'm going to call you back. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah v'Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim ha'ela. O God, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, send your blessing and healing to the following of our friends: Mona Ellis, Murray Savar, Chaim Zanvo ben Chaya Rivka, Hannah Bat Tova Esther, Melinda Jacobs, Norman. Are there any other names in the prayer for healing?
Lily and Linda. Connie Gilks,
Mr. Brulette, Oregon, Barry, Susan.
Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim.
Shabbat Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Shabbat Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah
Sarah, if you'll stay up here. Ellen, Michelle, if you'll go back. If you guys will stay here. We will hold the Torah so that you can see both the Ten Commandments and Shema, assuming that I can do that. Please rise.
This is our Torah, Asher Sam Moshe, Lifnei Bnei Yisrael, Avi Adonai, Miyad Moshe. Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, yai, lai.
The top of page 374.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado. Odo v'aretz v'shayim, v'yarem k'yamo, tehila v'kol chasidav, libnei Yisrael, am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It's Chayim, Lamasikiba, V'kol Leva, Yerusha, Teravecha, Narneinu Am, V'kol Tzivoteka, Shalom. Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashua, Chadish, Chadish Yameinu, Chadish Yameinu,
Please be seated. I think I've asked you this once before, but do you ever wonder when you read a newspaper, whether online or in print, if such a thing exists anymore, which headlines will be forgotten next week, or which just the opposite? In what I am about to say, I hope I am wrong, but I wonder, I fear that what happened in Israel this week, never mind the slow roll of events here in our own country, is something we may yet remember in 100, 200, 500 years. This week we turned the corner on the summer. Wednesday night and Thursday was Tisha B'Av. For those who were here, it was a tremendously powerful service. If I don't say so myself, I thought of Tisha B'Av that we observed here on Wednesday night. Tisha B'Av marks, and I note with some irony and trepidation, that it's not exactly right. The first temple was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. The second temple was destroyed near Tisha B'Av. So it doesn't have to be the exact date to be like a Tisha B'Av thing. And there are signs in Israel this week holding up signs that say Shisha B'Av, the 6th of Av, the date of the Knesset vote. I don't know if you saw this, it's on my Facebook page, but every Israeli newspaper, including Yisrael Hayom, which was funded and founded by Sheldon Adelson as a vehicle to support Bibi at one point, had a picture on the front page that was simply entirely black, saying a dark day for Israel. It is said that the first temple, the end of Jewish sovereignty the first time, was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 before the Common Era, and the reason, the explanation given for it later on was Avodah Zarah, was idolatry. It is said that the Second Jewish Commonwealth came to an end when the Romans destroyed the Second Temple, Herod's expanded version of the Second Temple, in the year 70 of the Common Era, and the reason given for that was not Avodah Zarah, idolatry, but was Sinat Chinam, needless hatred of one another, factionalism, divisiveness. And the signs in Israel this week evoke the fear. This week, it had to happen this week, of the beginning of the end of the Third Jewish Commonwealth. My teacher, Rabbi Daniel Hartman, said that Israel should be only as Jewish as democracy allows and not only as democratic as Judaism allows. I fear that if this is the beginning of the end, it will be because somehow we chose, or some forces in power chose, Judaism over democracy. There are two famous features of this week's Torah portion. The portion is called Va'elchanan. I invite you to join us tomorrow at 9:15 for the study of both the Ten Commandments and the Shema and Ve'ahavta. In Jewish tradition, the Shema includes the Ve'ahavta. It's only a Reformed thing to state them separately. The first feature of this week's portion is the second set of Ten Commandments, which we heard the second half of tonight. And the second feature is the Shema. I'm going to speak about both, but with a wrinkle in each. First, about the Ten Commandments. Do you remember the cocktail party question of the 1970s and 80s? What's a cocktail party question? If you went to a cocktail party and you said that you were whatever your profession is, there's almost always going to be a question that follows up on that particular question of what your profession is. If you were a rabbi at that period of time, I remember this very clearly. Well, in the 1990s, the cocktail party question when I said I was a rabbi, oh, you're a rabbi, do you do mixed marriages? Right? By the way, I do. I changed my position in 2007. But the question of the 70s and 80s, always, when you went to a cocktail party and somebody said, oh, what do you do? And you said, you're a rabbi, would be the following kind of thing. Well, rabbi, I'm not religious or anything, but I'm a deeply spiritual person. And what would that be followed by? I follow the Ten Commandments. Never mind that the first 4 commandments are pretty religious, right? The one we started with tonight was Shabbat, right? I'm not quite sure you can be not religious and follow the Ten Commandments. Never mind. I know what they're trying to say. What they are trying to say is that they're basically a good person. They usually don't rob banks, that they don't commit murder very often. I won't comment on any of the others. That they are confusing the Ten Commandments with universal moral law. Now, how do I know that the Ten Commandments do not represent universal moral law in Jewish tradition? Every group has an idea about what universal moral law is. That is, every group has an idea about what its own followers should do, but they also have an idea about what everybody should do in order to be a good person. So there is a Jewish view of universal moral law, and the Ten Commandments isn't it. The Ten Commandments was meant for Jews. There's an overlap, but anybody know, besides Bennett, what is the universal law in Judaism? Bennett doesn't either. Well, if you want to boil it all down, that's the sort of golden rule. But the concept of universal law, there's not 10 but 7,
Yeah.
and it's called the
I don't know.
Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the 7 commandments of the children of Noah. Noah, of course, was referred to as a righteous person, but was not Jewish. The first Jew was Abraham, right? So those who are righteous but are not Jewish are considered Noahites. And there are 7 such laws. Of course, not murder. You've got to include don't murder, right? That's got to be part of the overlap, right? No rape. No stealing is part of the overlap. But there is one other. And this is what it takes to be a righteous person, no matter what religion you are, in whatever society you are. It says that you have to have a lawyer. No, it doesn't say that. But it does say that you have to live, to be a good person, you have to live in a society that has a court system. It says that you have to live in a society that has an ability to administer justice in a way which is fair, which is transparent, and which is just. It is one of the basic commandments that Jews think applies to all human beings, and it is something which the Israeli Knesset just completely undercut. What happened this past week, it is not yet a full autocracy. But as one of the speakers hosted by a forum at the Shalom Hartman Institute said, we are now on the verge of being a banana republic. What does this mean? The Knesset just canceled the power of the Supreme Court to cancel certain decisions of the Knesset. It used something which does sound a little strange called a reasonableness clause. If you want to know more detail about this, I've posted many articles on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page. I didn't think it belonged on the synagogue one until tonight. The immediate practical import, and I'm not making this up because this is what this government in Israel wants to do. They want to appoint senior ministers who are convicted criminals. They want to exempt from prosecution a prime minister who is under trial for bribery. They want to appoint clearly corrupt officials. They want to fire the Attorney General. The Attorney General, you may be hearing about that in the news, but it's not a parallel position to our Attorney General. It's rather an independent person who is the one who makes these judgments about whether laws that the Knesset pass are constitutional or not. It's not just the left wing that is complaining about this. It's not just crying wolf. Again, you can look at the articles that I've posted on my personal Facebook page. AIPAC has called for protests against AIPAC. And other center-right figures who have never before, said it's okay to criticize Israel. In fact, I have heard myself some of these figures who are calling on American Jews to protest Israel. I have myself heard some of them. I was with Rabbi Weiss on one occasion when one of these people just tore into an American Jew who was criticizing Israel for daring to criticize Israel. These are people who now want American Jews to criticize Israel. The Supreme Court has the power to cancel acts of the Knesset. What if it cancels the law, which cancels their power, to cancel the decisions of the Knesset? This is not theoretical. The court has indicated it's not going to issue an immediate injunction, but there will be hearings about this. If that happens, then imagine the situation. You are in the police department and you are overseeing people who have just beaten a prisoner to death, and this has happened. You are a soldier and you have just captured a terrorist and you want to blow the person's brains out, and that has happened recently. This government is very clear that it wants to exonerate and make into heroes the soldiers who do that. The Supreme Court has been the bulwark in standing against. There are members of this Knesset that want to penalize homosexuality. There are members of this Knesset in senior positions in the government that want to ban the image of women in public. This is not crying wolf. This is not a fire drill. This is the real thing. The second feature of this portion, this one which is not a repetition of something which came before, but which is essentially unique, are the words of the Shema. Now, it's not clear what those words mean. They're the most common, most familiar words in Jewish life, and it's truly not clear what they mean. It may actually be less a description of the nature of God. I always thought the Shema meant, Hear, O Israel, the eternal our God, the eternal God is one, about the oneness of God. That may not be what it means. It may actually be an expression of loyalty. It may be saying, oh, listen, O Jews, you can have only Adonai as your God. But either way, it is a vision of unity. And this is a very hard vision to hold in a nation torn asunder. And I am not exaggerating. Many of the protests against the government's moves have had 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000 protesters. Israel has 8 million people. There have been one of the demonstrations on behalf of the government's position almost reached that number once. But regularly, the protests against the government are hitting 100. It is said that there are 2 million Israelis who have participated in protests against this government move. Remember, this is a government who has a minister who says about himself, you can Google this, I am not making this up, I am a fascist homophobe, quote unquote, said proudly. I am a fascist homophobe. A minister in the government, not a backbencher. There are 2 million Israelis. This is 25% of the country. There are 340 million Americans. Is that figure correct?
330. Yeah,
340? Let me go with 340 because that's what I used in my calculator earlier. That means that there would be 85 million Americans protesting. Have we ever had that? Ever? The Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, did we ever hit that many? Or that high a percentage of the country? But it is said, ironically, we read the Ten Commandments, but you correctly pointed out, Canner, that they're in Hebrew not called the Ten Commandments, partially because we don't want to emphasize from the fact that there are how many commandments? Debbie Friedman's song, there are 613 commandments, that, right? Jewish tradition says there are 613 commandments. The tradition of the number predated somebody counting them, because any rabbi that counts them gives you different lists. But the tradition says there are 613. So, of course, people will come along because we're Jews and we're annoying, and somebody will say, what is the 614th commandment? I have heard it said that the 614th commandment, this one's for Susan, thou shalt have no Jewish function other than Yom Kippur or Tisha B'Av without food. And even Yom Kippur we end with food. Some. Only juice and cookies this year, by the way. It is said that the 614th commandment, this was from the philosopher Emil Fackenheim, You should live your Jewish life in a way that it not gives Hitler a posthumous victory. I believe there is a 614th commandment. I believe it is this: a Jew must never give up hope. This is Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of comfort. This has not been a very comforting week. But I end with a story which I shared with some of you both on Facebook and in email. A story of my father. He was so proud. He was a Renaissance man. He was an intellectual. He was a scholar. He was a snob. Actually, he wasn't, he could get along with anybody, but he did like being recognized. And he was very, very proud when he was nominated, voted in, accepted into the Cosmos Club of Washington. What's the problem? Exactly. It was alarming because this was the 70s and the Cosmos Club did not accept women. My mother and I, and he said every time the vote gets closer with my vote in favor. But then they took a vote that said this will be the last vote. And that vote somehow passed. And I said, Dad, I said it much less calmly than this. I said it much less nicely than this. The time has come. You have to quit. And he said, and whether he was right by accident or by some inner gut feeling that was correct, he was correct. He said, this is the last gasp of an outdated reactionary cabal. He said, you watch, you wait. And very shortly after that, that vote was reversed, and my father voted in favor, and then helped nominate some of the very first women who were admitted to the Cosmos Club. If we come to the point when the Supreme Court cancels the acts of the Knesset, which cancel the right of the Supreme Court to cancel the acts of the Knesset, we may be at a point where we have no choice. And a constitutional crisis may become a constitutional moment. This may be a time when Israel emerges, having had a discussion it has postponed for 75 years. Who are we really, and what do we stand for? This is not a time to walk away. This is not a time to throw up our hands and say we're done with you. This may in fact be a time to begin thinking about the next congregational trip to Israel. Certainly it is a time to begin thinking about your next personal trip or your first one. This is a time to walk with and not walk away. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to everybody that's here with us this evening and to everybody that is watching from home. I'm Linda Clarks, President of Beth Israel, and I do welcome, we have some guests with us this evening, and we're happy to have you share Shabbat with us. Tomorrow morning there will be Shabbat morning study at 9:15 in the Cohen Library, and Shabbat morning services will begin at 10:30 here in this chapel. Services next Friday evening, August the 4th, will be at 5:30 p.m. It is Tu B'Av, the Jewish Valentine's Day, so we will be observing that here. Our next beach service will be on Friday, August the 18th at 5:30 at Huntington Avenue Beach in Margate. And if any of you attended the beach service last week, it was absolutely beautiful, and we look forward to you sharing the next beach service with us. We're having a J Place Adult Book Group, which will meet on Wednesday, August the 30th at 1 p.m. in the Cohen Library. The book is The Librarian of Burned Books. And even if you don't read the book, you are still welcome to join the book group. Please, if you have gotten your Book of Remembrance form and religious school registration forms, please make sure to hand them into the office. And if you don't have forms, we're happy to give them to you, and they're also on our website. And we are collecting new and unused school supplies, which we give to our friends at the New Hope Baptist Church. So if you would like to bring anything in, please do that and drop it at the office. And with that, I wish you a good week. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Switch sides.
We continue on the bottom of page 586. As we continue with Eleno, please rise.
So I brought my own yad, not because I don't love the one here, but this was made for me by, given to me by a B'nai Mitzvah student at my most recent congregation, whose mother grew up here at Beth Israel. And so I wanted to at least use it for the first time I chant Torah here. I believe it might be handmade by the sister, somebody who grew up here. That I'm unclear.
Okay.
So, and I don't know the maiden name to know who it is, but the grandfather. Mayor?
Bob
Because I know that was Koch here.
Mayor's sister.
Okay, so
I
I
thought
brought that.
I know you did it for your private reasons, but I.
So there's a connection.
Linda Gisson.
What's that?
Linda Gisson is the artist.
Linda
Oh,
Gisson.
okay, so and that must be Melissa's sister.
Melissa's aunt.
Melissa's aunt, okay.
Okay.
Melissa's daughter gave this to me when I left my country.
There are stars whose radiance is visible on this earth, though they have long since ceased to exist. There are people whose light and whose warmth continue to shine for us, though they are no longer among us. These stars which shine in the dark of the night, they light the way for humankind. We remember at this time those of our congregation's beloved whose yahrzeit occurs on this Shabbat: Mark Bateman, Fanny Bernstein, Irving Bernstein, Anne Brown, Thomas Revis Bullen, Murray Fassler, Israel Fink, Abraham Fisher, Ruth Flax, Dr. Patricia Garfield, Helen Glicksman, Alan Goldberg, Harold Goldstein, Ilka Gottlieb, Jacqueline Haas, Frida Hamburger, Adam Hirschfield, Kent Katz, Sally Kleberg, Joseph Lichtenstein, John Lukalsi, Beauregard Manco, Sylvia Moskowitz, Renee Ostroff, Jacob Persky, Morton Pliskin, Rose Rabinowitz, Mark Rosenberg, Alice Sporkin, Max Weiner, Albert Wilson, Harry Zlotnick, Lillian Zucker, Ida Zwicker, Morris Zwicker. During this period of Shloshim, the 30 days following their deaths, we mention Alan Rosenfield, David Goldberg, Stanley Waldman, and Diane Klein. The memories of all of our loved ones are with us. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 598, and as is the practice in most Reformed synagogues, we rise as a congregation as a whole for the Kaddish prayer itself. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rama, v'alma tivrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayei chon v'yomei v'chayei techol Beit Yisrael, ba'agava v'izman kariv imhu amen. Yehei shmona rabba min shamayim, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, imru amen. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudushav v'richu, la'ela min kol mirchata v'shirata, tishbachata v'nehemata, da'me'eman le'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom ha'rabba min shamayim, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. The source of peace, send peace to all who mourn in this congregation, and comfort all the bereaved among us and wherever they may be, all those who are suffering the pain of loss everywhere, and together let us say, Amen. Page 378, page 678 on the bottom.
Just a note about Hatikva, the rabbi mentioned the need for hope, the command to retain hope. Hatikva, the hope. Shabbat Shalom. Well, in theory, it's recorded. Please join us for candles and kiddush and motzi.
That works as a guitar stand temporarily.
In here, it's never, it comes and say